Tonight, a very special Eclectic Mind. Shell and Jody talk about man-powered flight, electric cars, saving the environment, and much, much more with world-renowned inventor and aviation pioneer, Dr. Paul McCready.
Good evening out there in television land, and here we are again with Shell and Jody on
Hello
the
there.
Eclectic Mind. Hi.
Hi, Shell.
We have a very, very special guest this evening. An aviation pioneer, as our announcer mentioned, Dr. Paul McCready. Paul, how are you?
Hi.
A
Okay.
pleasure.
Hi, pleasure.
A pleasure. To get things started, to set the tone of the evening, we have a film, video that Dr. McCready has put together about some of the areas that he's worked in over the past several years. And we'd like to have that film right now, and then we'll go from there. And we'll come back to the show and discuss what you see. And now, the film.
And now the film.
It'll come.
Doing more with less is a vital feature of a world that works, where our increasing demands are met, yet do not overwhelm the limits of the Earth. Some of the unusual, efficient vehicles with which AeroVironment has been involved serve as visual metaphors for the theme. Most dramatic is the unmanned 100-foot solar-powered Pathfinder, here undergoing low-altitude tests in late 1993. Versions are aimed at eternal flight, or at least flights for months above 65,000 feet, to carry equipment for surveillance, stratospheric monitoring, and telecommunications. The fragile 70-pound Gossamer Albatross was pedaled 23 miles across the English Channel in 1979 to win the largest prize in aviation history. It demonstrates what can be done with low power when new concepts of efficiency are unleashed by challenges not burdened by constraints from narrow rules or the need for commercial production. It is a catalyst for new perspectives that can lead to useful insights and products such as the Pathfinder. And incidentally, it was a tribute to the human spirit. The more primitive and fragile Gossamer Condor was the first really successful human-powered airplane. The final version can be seen at the National Air and Space Museum, where it was installed after this 1977 flight won the first Kramer Prize. About this time, the International Human-Powered Vehicle Association was starting to organize competitions for land vehicles without the inhibiting effect of rules. Just go as fast as you can. The streamlined Gold Rush finally exceeded 65 miles per hour, and a two-person version averaged over 50 miles an hour on a 40-mile freeway trip. Later competitions started to include some less extreme practical vehicle categories. No match for our wonderful modern cars, but valuable in suggesting that some transportation need not involve large amounts of steel and oil and can be healthy and fun. Pioneering for speed from human power has resulted in some amazing water vehicles. This flying fish hydrofoil lowers drag by flying on a submerged wing. It has been pedaled at 18 miles per hour and can beat the best 8-oared racing shells. In 1987, General Motors teamed with AeroVironment for the rapid development of the GM Sun Racer to be entered in the World Solar Challenge to cross Australia on energy from sunlight. It won, speeding 50% faster than the runner-up and averaging 42 miles per hour on only a kilowatt of power. Batteries to store the intermittent energy from the sun for vehicle use are essential, and obviously for non-race purposes, they can be charged from the utility grid without need for solar cells. This solar car race helped emphasize that battery-powered cars can make sense. Next, the same team combined to create the battery-powered impact demonstrator. To show that cars emitting no pollution can be part of our transportation future, it needed adequate range and snappy acceleration. Here it zooms from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8 seconds. Now, many groups are increasing priorities on battery-powered vehicles, vehicle efficiency in general, and broader transportation issues. Impractical human-powered airplanes, streamlined bikes, and solar-powered cars now seem more valuable as some of the ideas they ignited evolve into socially desirable vehicles aimed at a mass market. Globally, bikes are widely employed for personal mobility, transport of goods, and recreation. For some uses, battery assist, a scaled-down version of electric car technology, makes sense. You can get the help of a virtual pedaler, here hidden in the saddlebags, who weighs only a few pounds and never talks back, not to turn your bicycle into a motorcycle, but to let you do for 30 minutes what your normal ability would let you do for only 3 minutes. You can extend your commuting range with this bionic hybrid that will never run out of gas. You can match performance between individuals or not be bothered by hills on a hot afternoon. A tiny airplane, the AV Pointer, serves for surveillance, in effect a pair of roving eyeglasses. A cutting-edge example of where miniaturization can lead if the operator is remote from the vehicle. It is convenient to carry, assemble, and launch by hand. Battery-powered, it is silent and rarely noticed. It sends high-resolution video pictures back to the operator. With onboard GPS, it can navigate autonomously, and it is rugged enough to self-land without damage. The modern sailplane is superbly efficient. Some can glide as flat as 60 feet forward for every foot of descent. They are powered only by the energy they can extract from the atmosphere. An atmosphere nature stirs up by solar energy. Humans and soaring birds have found nature can be generous in providing replenishable energy. Sailplanes have flown over 1,000 miles, and the altitude record is over 50,000 feet. The Solar Challenger was made to serve as a symbol that photovoltaic cells can produce real power and will be part of the world's energy future. In 1981, it flew 163 miles from Paris to England solely on the power of sunbeams and established a basis for the Pathfinder. The message from all these vehicles is that ideas and technology can be harnessed to produce remarkable gains in doing more with less. Gains that can help us attain a desirable balance between technology and nature. The stakes are high as we speed toward a challenging future. Buckminster Fuller said it clearly. There are no passengers on Spaceship Earth, only crew. We, the crew, can and must do more with less, much less.
More with much less. That's the crux of the entire situation. That's, I guess, the bottom line of everything you're working on.
Now, yes.
Now.
It wasn't what I had begun with, but in the early 1970s, I had gotten $100,000 from the bank to loan a friend to start a company, which didn't succeed. He couldn't pay the money back. I was stuck with having to pay the money back to the bank, and I didn't have the money. But I heard of a human-powered airplane project with a prize of about $100,000, and I gave that a lot of thought and finally came up with the right idea of how to do it. So we did it sort of as a very serious hobby. It took a year's group of weekends to get it going, but it worked. However, it cost $65,000 to do all the work, and there wasn't much profit. But then Henry Kramer, who came up with the prize, came out with a new prize of about $200,000 for a flight across the English Channel. First prize had taken 18 years for somebody to win. He thought the next prize would take 18 years. But we realized if you just cleaned up the Gossamer Condor, then you'd have you'd have a plane that was efficient enough to do the channel flight, and it did. And when that project was done, it had taken care of all the debts, and it also provided some good tax deduction that I'd never thought of at first. That cut my taxes to a third for 5 or 6 years. But it was getting me back in aviation, which I hadn't been doing for some years. And we then decided to do a solar airplane project, which succeeded, and did other things. And I gave a talk to the Lindbergh Foundation in 1982 after we'd done several of these, and that forced me to get all my thoughts together and realize that all my background, all different subjects fitted this doing more with less, and that was my real goal, and so that's what we do in the company now.
It kind of evolved to that. Yeah. It's really funny that this whole thing, because I remember following in several of the magazines and stuff like Popular Mechanics and Mechanics Illustrated when the Gossamer Condor flew and how fascinating that was. What was the period of time from the Gossamer Condor flight to the Albatross flight?
Just 2 years.
Oh, so yeah, once they made the other announcement, you just rolled it right in. Basically. And then you got out of debt. Did you form the company after that?
The company had been formed in 1971, well before this time. Okay. But it was just doing miscellaneous projects that weren't all that exciting. And when we
military contracts and
various
stuffing
things,
boards.
Yeah.
We got a call?
We got a call.
We got a call?
Yes, caller.
Doctor, how are you, sir?
Fine.
Okay, let me ask you a question. On those planes, could they hold Shell's weight?
After we did the prize flight on the first Gossamer Condor, we then had everybody who worked on the project got a chance to fly it, little kids, old ladies, sedentary businessmen, so on. Oh. But it could only stand 200 pounds, and maximum. One of my friends claimed he weighed 195, but he was really 215, and it all collapsed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was it made out of?
Mylar was the covering, and that was the critical part. Yeah. But it was aluminum tubing that we had gotten made in chemical bath to be smaller and smaller wall thickness, so it'd be strong in the middle and very thin out at the tip. And we used balsa wood, tape, miscellaneous things, whatever would work. On the second one, the Gossamer Albatross, we put much more effort into that construction because it had to fly a lot further and take less power.
PVC tubing, you think that would have worked, or was that too heavy?
That's too heavy.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was the weight of like the?
Each plane was 70 pounds.
The whole plane?
The whole plane was 70 pounds.
Wow.
And then the pilot was about 140 pounds, which was about ideal, but it turns out if you have a pilot who's 100 pounds or a pilot who's 200 pounds, it's the amount of power he can put out per kilogram of his weight. And
did you use a bicycle racer?
Yeah, oh yeah. And that was the pilot, Brian Allen, who did the prize flights, was an amateur bicyclist who turned out to be just truly remarkable at bicycling, but he also fitted into the project very well.
You know, it's amazing where these people, are you aware a little bit, you know I know everything, right?
Oh, absolutely.
A little bit of useless information. You know what other interesting racer was also a bicycle racer?
No.
Barney Oldfield was a bicycle racer, and when Henry Ford started putting cars together, he got Barney Oldfield to drive his race cars on the old wooden tracks.
That was the way most racing was done back in 1900, 1899.
Bicycle?
So on. Yeah. Bicycles, but then they began putting motors in bicycles. They began having contests where the bicycle would follow a car or a train, and using the vehicle in front to cut the drag down.
Well,
they'd
like
get up to
a cone
100 miles an hour.
Yeah. They did that with a Mercedes. Some guy in Germany. What did he do? Like 130 miles an hour on a bicycle?
It's about 150 now.
Is it 150 the record? Yeah. It's that kind of a thing. It's amazing. Imagine doing 150 miles an hour on a bicycle, get a blowout.
Yeah.
Wow.
This whole concept of more for less, getting more out of less. Why are we doing that? What's going on with the environment and all that? We need this.
I figured out this really was my goal after I'd done these first human-powered flight projects and the solar-powered thing, and had to give a talk that forced me to get all my thoughts collected, and I realized all the different things I'd done before then really fitted in this business of being efficient and doing the same job using a lot less energy.
Okay.
And we got another project in air, land, water that all fitted into this, and now my company, AeroVironment, is pretty well dominated by projects that fit the doing more with less theme.
Solar energy, wind energy, stuff like that?
It's very important because not only are we doing it, but everybody's got to be doing it. In a while, there are too many people on Earth. There's not enough energy for them. We're consuming oil. We've just about reached the peak of international supplies. It's going to go down no matter what we do, and we've got to be more efficient. People have been getting more efficient.
Well, since the gas prices are so high.
That makes it really apparent to people what to do.
Goes right to the pocketbook.
Well, what do you think you could use instead? Do you have any idea what you could use instead of the oil that we're using up?
We've done a lot of work with hydrogen fuel cell systems from 10 watts to 100 kilowatts. We've done a lot of work with battery-powered systems from 10 watts to 100 kilowatts, and we find for the cars where you have to worry about the economics, the battery system really is the great solution. But it's not apparent in the U.S. because the car companies have too much old influence of what people were doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and they don't realize what you can do with modern batteries. The battery strength, the amount of energy you get out of a battery just keeps increasing another 15-20% each year, and the battery-powered cars that existed a few years ago, which you never see on the road nowadays, all were getting about 60 watt-hours per kilogram of battery. Now you can get 200 watt-hours per kilogram, and people are experimenting with 300, 350 watt-hours per kilogram, and we're just right on top of it, and it's getting cheaper.
You said other places in the world, are there, how do I ask this? There are other people, other places in the world looking at much more electric energy for vehicles and stuff like that? And what's your opinion why they're doing it and we're not?
They're doing good research over in Southeast Asia and Japan on all sorts of things, and finding that you can do amazing jobs with cars, but basically cars have been a U.S. development, but our manufacturers don't really care about the realities now. They haven't really understood that the amount of fuel internationally is just about at the peak, and it's going to be going down, while we're using more, and China will be using a lot more, and India will be using a lot more.
Just by virtue of growing population?
More by their improved economics and understanding. They're building stuff as well as can be built in the United States, and in fact, a lot of the research goes on there that we are using.
Do you think your work is going to be able to save the environment?
It's going to contribute to the saving, but you've got to get an awful lot of support for it, and you've got to get people's attitudes to change. The airplanes that we use, bigger planes, 6-place, 20-place, 200-place airplanes, are all efficient, and they all look pretty good, but they're efficient. And if you make one that isn't that efficient in its use of fuel, it doesn't sell.
Right.
So efficiency is very important for airplanes. For cars, they're really treated more like toys. Everybody jazzes them
Absolutely.
up, gives you super power and all sorts of features, which it's hard to understand why we find that so appealing, but we do because we've lived with it all our lives. But if you made cars the way they make airplanes, the focus on efficiency, you could do a fantastic job on making them have much, go much further for a gallon of gasoline or for a pound of battery.
Yeah, so that was kind of like where Tucker was coming from. A lot of what he did was based on aeroplanes, as I understood it.
He did an amazing job. The movie about him was remarkably right.
Yeah,
but
rear engine, light combing engine. I mean, he had an airplane engine in the car.
When he moved it out for the media to see it,
wrong time, wrong place.
it wasn't running. They had to push it.
I know.
No, it had a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, a lot of features.
But those ideas that relate to fuel economy just haven't hit the public, and the public hasn't realized that you can get good fuel economy. The Toyota Prius gives that, and now has huge number of people trying to get it. It's got a year backlog in its selling, and U.S. car companies have finally sort of woken up, and they're thinking of coming out with sort of similar things, but the Prius is only a small step in the right direction. It doesn't it doesn't charge its battery from the wall socket. It just uses it in the car and helps you. Instead of putting on the brakes, you put on the brakes, but
it becomes
it gives you the energy back.
The energy feeds back. It makes generators out of the motors.
Yeah.
Aren't we using some of your inventions in Iraq and Afghanistan?
The small drone airplanes have gotten very popular over there. You saw it in the video, the Pointer. They're using a lot of them. They've reported that they have saved a lot of lives.
Really?
And they're easy to operate because you just throw it up in the air. It's small enough so you can carry it around and you can throw it. And then to land, you just bring it back, and when it's overhead, you say land, and it goes into a full stall and just goes splot on the ground and doesn't get hurt.
So it's got, before we take the call, let me understand that. Is the guy flying it, or is it voice command that it's programmed?
It's whatever you want. You can pre-program it.
Really? So you can say fly, go right, go left, and it does that?
Yeah, or
That's
you
so cool.
can tell it certain points on GPS, and it goes there.
Oh, really?
And, so on. But but that one weighed 9 pounds, which is one of the larger little drones we use.
Yeah.
Now there's a 4-pound Raven that is more popular and taking more orders because it can do the same thing that the Pointer did years ago.
But does it real small now?
It's smaller and flies about as long, but we're down to one kind that's only 14-inch wingspan, very small, so you can carry it around easily. You don't
Put it
need
in a
big
backpack,
boxes.
and when you need it, you just pull it out.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And there'll be smaller ones in a while. We experiment with things down to half an ounce and up to 300 pounds, but the half pound to 10 pounds, that's the ones that get the use.
That's amazing. That amazed me when you saw that. Caller. Hello.
Oh,
We need it. He left. Okay. At any rate, it's the whole concept of the drones, and they're all battery powered or solar powered.
They're battery powered.
Yeah.
But when they have to be very efficient, and they are that we try and make everything efficient. We find a ceiling fan just going around takes about 90 watts to make it go. If you make the blades really aerodynamic, properly designed, that cuts the power in half. And if you then make the electronics efficient, 60% instead of 20%, that's another factor of 3, and you've ended up with 1/6 the amount of power to make that fan go around. And you can do improvements like that in so many things that we've just gotten accustomed to.
But what's the cost factor to get that better efficiency? Like, for instance, these neon light bulbs that, you know, the little squiggly light bulbs are real expensive.
The
fluorescence.
The light bulbs cost you more to buy, and they last about 10 times longer, 20 times longer than regular bulbs.
We have to wrap this up.
We're done already?
We're done.
To wrap it up?
We have to wrap this up.
Unbelievable.
We're going to have you back. Do you see how fast it went?
Wow. I can't believe it.
I have all my questions. I only got 2 or 3.
Really? You know, we didn't even get to, like, you know, bang on the president and beat him up. He comes out of the gas world. He wants you to use more gas. Right? Would you agree with that?
I'll agree with your assessment.
Instantly.
Well, this has been an interesting show.
Yes, it's a shame.
It's not long enough, but we can always continue.
Exactly.
Part
2. I learned a lot. It was very interesting. What we're going to do is, after the credits, that statement that you gave me about what we're doing with the future and everything.